This is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of cancel culture that's been sweeping the rest of the media and indeed the nation and Christmas markets in Strasbourg. Now, a worrying new report has found that free speech at universities is being constrained due to a culture of quiet no platforming, which has created a climate of fear. The Higher Education Policy Institute has revealed that students are now acting more cautiously because of fallout from events at other institutions. This is how it happens, people. We've been saying this since the dawn of time, leading to various societies disinviting certain speakers over fears of a backlash. One man who certainly has a bone to pick with this is rapper and social media superstar sensation. It's Zuby, who says that it's leading our future generations to intellectual unfitness, basically stunting their mental growth. Zuby is uncancelled. There he is, yes, finally, yeah. I thought we had accidentally cancelled you then for a second, Zuby. Right, good stuff. So, Zuby, what do you mean by this intellectual unfitness?
By intellectual unfitness, I mean people lacking the capacity to critically think and argue and conversate and debate their ideas because they're not being challenged in any way. Just like you have to train your muscles or train your heart if you want to have good physical strength or cardiovascular fitness, you have to train your brain as well. If your ideas are never challenged and you're not learning anything new and you're not discussing and debating with people and arguing ideas, then it leads to intellectual unfitness. You don't have
it does. It stunts you intellectually. But Zuby, I'm worried we've crossed the boundary. We've reached it. We've crossed the Rubicon, because now what we're starting to see is self-censorship. So it's gone from having protesters at a university saying Jacob Rees-Mogg is not welcome here to now them going, let's not invite Jacob Rees-Mogg because it'd cause a problem. Yeah, and that's an issue.
That's right. And this has been going on for years. I mean, this is a new report that's come out, but we've known about this for many years at this point, and it creates an overall chilling effect throughout society. I think that free speech isn't something that just comes to whether or not someone can be arrested or prosecuted for things they say, but as far as I'm concerned, it's also a societal and cultural aspect. If people have free speech legally, but they feel like they're not even able to use it in any way, then do you really have free speech? I think there's a difference between a silent majority, people like that term, and a silenced majority.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And I am deeply concerned. I regularly go out every single day now, actually, and do vox pops with people where I ask the public questions about stuff. And I've actually almost stopped bothering to ask anyone under the age of 25, because when it comes to the political stuff, you just get one answer, which is, Tories are bad, Labour is good. And that must have come from school, it must have come from just TikTok or something. And it's this censorship, because now they've got to conform to one view. And frankly, they're idiots.
Yeah, well, universities have an extreme bias in terms of the political leanings. That's well known in academia. It's similar in some parts of the entertainment industry, but not as strongly as it is in academia. You've got whole universities without a single right-leaning or conservative professor. And that's an issue. And then when you couple that with speakers being deplatformed and people not being allowed to hear the other side of any issue, then they're not prepared for the real world where you go into it. And there are billions of people out there, and none of us agree on absolutely everything. And you are going to have to argue your points and understand and be able to empathize with other ones.
Well, and you know what? Sometimes alpha males or confident people, outgoing people, your more slightly stereotypical bloke, as it were, wins, right? Because actually they're dealing with a lot of weaklings a lot of the time. And, you know, it's unfortunate, I don't like to say it, but if you raise a generation of saps and simps, then actually, you know, it doesn't take much for people to rise to the top. People who are a bit confident, people who don't mind being a bit cocky at times and being a bit outgoing, and actually play to win. And that is what happens when you don't have winners and losers on sports days at primary school, Zuby.
I hear that. Yeah, well, I think we want to encourage people to be physically fit and in good health, but we also want to encourage people to be mentally fit and mentally healthy. And I would argue that that includes being able to handle things that you may find potentially objectionable or certainly disagree with, things that could be potentially offensive, and you can articulate rather than just screaming and ranting and name calling. You're able to articulate your positions better. And I think that if you are confident and you're good at speaking and communicating with people, then that's a very, very powerful, that's a very powerful tool in your arsenal.
But how do we stop it? Because we need a sea change now. We need to have a serious conversation with, frankly, teachers and university lecturers and, frankly, people just in authority. I mean, sometimes even people running the police force, for goodness sake. And say, let everyone be a bit offended. And if someone comes to you and says, I was offended by that, as long as it wasn't, you know, actually racist, criminal, sexist, misogynistic, basically a crime, an actual crime, then you're just going to have to suck it up.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even, even those caveats concern me because offense is very subjective. I think we all agree that there are certain things beyond the pale, for example, threatening violence or terroristic threats, that kind of thing. But in terms of what people find offensive, it's extremely subjective. And if we go down this road of increasingly criminalizing things that various people could potentially find subjectively offensive, then that's when people start getting arrested for jokes or arrested from preaching from the Bible or the Quran or just stating an opinion online and so on. And that's a problem. If we're going to have free speech, then I understand it can be messy. I understand sometimes people say things that we don't like, and that's true for all of us. But I don't think the correct way to approach that is to censor people, to shut people down, to deplatform them. I think that the best way is to allow them to speak and to use your own free speech to combat that.
I can't help but wonder whether or not this country has absolutely sleptwalked into part of a bigger plan, probably started by Tony Blair, because as far as I can tell, all things bad came from Blair. But we've slowly indoctrinated generations, younger generations, into, I would argue, a lot of the kind of left-wing sopping wet thought. And that now is playing its way through. And I can't help but wonder whether or not we just allowed that to happen a bit. Do you think there was some kind of agenda at play here?
That's a tricky one to answer. I don't know how much of an agenda it is per se, but I think that if you don't use your free speech, then you lose your free speech. And I think that once there is this ossification of one way of thinking and a very narrow Overton window, then it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because people who are, whether you're in school or in university or you're in a corporate environment or you're online, people feel that chill. And as you said before, they start to self-censor. It's not that they are being censored or being deplatformed all the times, but they themselves are biting their own tongue more than they need to. Now, you don't need to, it's foolhardy to express every single thought that comes to your brain. We know that that's not how you operate, but you shouldn't be terrified and afraid to state very basic opinions or even facts around certain issues.
Yeah, or honestly held beliefs as well. Honestly held beliefs. Zuby, thank you. Zuby, thank you very much.